couple of hours before the show finally closes, I've actually tracked down Kris Kiser, who's the president of the OPEI. Yeah. Can I say the largest outdoor power equipment association?
Yes, sir.
In the world?
The world.
In the world. So big. Kris, what an event. We've had an amazing time.
Yet glad
again.
You're here.
No, it's important to us, and we brought a dealer over with us this year again, Jo, and she's found it pretty amazing. Can you give us any sneak previews on numbers?
Sure. We've crossed the 28,000 threshold. Remember, we're not a public show, so it's B2B. We're north of 28,000. I think we're going to come in about 28,500.
Wow.
So it'll be our biggest show ever. We're 41 years young here in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah.
So this is our biggest show ever. It's our second year sold out. So we've sold out the facility, and we've broken a attendance number.
Fantastic. I mean, it's just 41 years for Equip or for the association. Sorry, just to clarify that. For Equip.
Yeah, OPEI is 70-something years old.
Wow, and this venue here is off the scale for us Brits. You've expanded. Obviously, the West Wing's new, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so can you just give perhaps the people back in the UK an idea of floor space here?
Sure, we're about 1.2 million square feet. 3 different halls, as you know how you need comfortable shoes here. It's really spread out.
Yep.
But most importantly, we have 30 acres outside.
Yeah.
And that's where you can dig, cut, rip, tear. So it's a real world experience. These are real world folks. It's a working business.
Yeah.
And that's what's unique about this facility. It's the only one of its kind in the country.
Yeah.
And it's barely big enough to hold us.
Yeah.
So we stretch Louisville. We'll do about 34,000 room nights in our week here.
Okay. Yeah, wow.
So the scale of it, we'll do about $27 million for the city. As an event moneymaker for the city.
Yeah.
We're important to Louisville, Kentucky, but they're our home. The Equip, now we own the show, we manage the show, and that office is here in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah. You recently, am I right? A few years ago, you got sort of total control of the show. How's that flexibility changed things?
It's allowed us to be just that, to be flexible. We're not having to negotiate with partners on spend or ideas. We've had great partners in the past, but we wanted to do it unilaterally. And as a result, we now have bigger venues, bigger events. One of the keys to this show is it's an experience. It's experiential for the attendee. And our guys want peer-to-peer opportunities where they can socialize with one another, have a beer and a brat.
Yeah.
And so the opening reception at Churchill Downs, the big concert we had last night in the Yum Center Arena, which is a premier facility.
Just the Churchill Downs, just for guys back in the UK, that's where you have the Derby, yeah?
Yes.
The famous Derby, Kentucky.
150 years this year, the Kentucky Derby. Yeah. And so a lot of history there.
Yeah.
It's the Twin Spires, but it's a big, big venue now, beautiful space. And so it's an iconic place. And so people it's a bucket list item.
Yeah,
so people are there and they get the pictures of the track and the pictures.
It's quite special, actually.
It is very special.
Yeah.
Remember, Louisville, not by your standards, but by ours, it's old.
It's old, yeah.
Louisville's an old town.
Yeah.
The Derby's 150 years old, and so there's good history here.
Yeah.
And it's a bourbon town.
It's a bourbon town. I found that out last night. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
A lot of folks find that out here, but it's a bourbon town, and it's a science. And so, we want to make sure to expose people to that side of Kentucky, famously known for distilled spirits.
Yeah. Okay. So just moving on to the industry and your members, and how's the last year been for the industry?
Honestly, tough.
Yeah.
So it's been a tough year. COVID was such a banner year, and so many folks bought equipment that disrupted the business cycle. And so, and then we had issues with parts, supply, transportation, et cetera. So all that is now sorting out, the inventory, pass-throughs. And in this country, in our big political years, it's a little crazy and people get unsettled. Just a bit.
It says an election coming up, I hear.
Yeah, I hear. And hopefully it'll be over soon.
Yeah.
And then it settles back down.
You know what you're facing.
Right. And last year was a tough year weather-wise. There was no snow in the country. And so the guys that push snow for cash for spring buy, and plus those manufacturers, it was challenging. But light at the end of the tunnel. We're seeing a pretty good year next year. Most inventories are pretty low.
Yeah.
And so they'll be purchasing.
Good. And technology. We've obviously very, very interesting to see what's on stand. We were here 2 years ago. We were really starting to see battery happening over here, despite you guys, your love affair with gas. And robotics as well. hasn't moved on as quickly as we thought it might have done. There are a number of things. I'm sure it's economics. It's the price of gas over here,
Right.
or petrol, as we call it, is comparatively very, very low. But of course, legislation is starting to move over here as well,
Right.
in California.
Right.
How do you see the pace of that moving?
It's, as you know, on the commercial side of the equation, it has slowed.
Yeah.
But we're standing right here beside very large commercial, electric units.
Yeah, sure.
They're making them, they're in space.
Yeah.
And so I think over time, those costs obviously come down. I think there's some real world experience in the battery space on commercial guys. A lot of big lawns here, different temperatures. And so you may see a runtime advertised for units, and then suddenly you get it in and it's cold, you're tall, wet grass, you're on a slope, and it's a challenge on the battery. But the acceptance is growing, certainly in California where a law prohibits the sale of gasoline product. It's taking off there. But on the consumer side, very distinct movement. It started out with handheld, we're probably at 80% in most major categories. But it's transitioning. I remember coming here, I remember seeing the first little robots, which looked like vacuums.
That's right.
Guys.
And people did think they were vacuums.
Right? And there were a couple manufacturers, and now we've got many manufacturers in the space, and they're the size of automobiles. And they're either remote controlled or fully autonomous or GPS. The use of technology is extraordinary now in the business.
It is, and we, as I said, we're seeing it pushing ahead. Great guns over our side of the pond. So it'll be very interesting to see next year. How things have moved on. In regards to the dealer networks, really, really important to us. Obviously, service dealer is a dealer title. In regards to dealers that visit this show, do you have a rough idea of perhaps how that's evolving? Are numbers increasing?
Yes.
How are you going after them?
Numbers are increasing.
Yeah.
They increased significantly last year. This year, I think we're up 6. Last year was closer to 10. But the growth trajectory is solid. And remember, there are significant dealer consolidations in this country going on now as the nature of the business is transitioning. A lot of dealers are getting bigger or selling, they're selling ag equipment or construction equipment. We're fitting into that space. But they're core critical on the commercial side of the equation. You need a dealer to service the equipment. And so we have a significant dealer program here. I know you've met Bob and Sarah. And
indeed, we know them well.
Our education classes and sessions, and we listen to them. What do you want to? Are they tax experts? Are they service experts? Are they technology experts? And that's been a challenge in this country, finding battery techs, enough techs to work with dealers. And I think that's slowed some of it. The sales is that the dealerships may not have available personnel to work on those units. Now that's improving.
I mean, recruitment is a massive. Whatever country you speak to, it seems to be, fairly similar. Many countries the world over.
Labor's a challenge.
It's a challenge. But technology, we're talking about the professional market. Is ticking some boxes. Certainly, with if you get a sector like the golf industry, for example, and they're struggling to recruit. They're also being squeezed financially. And so they're starting to have their fairways cut by robots, which is sort of a piece of the jigsaw.
In the safety space, right? So we do a lot of work in the safety space, in safety education, safety training, safety videos, safe use. And the nice thing I see is, slopes are challenged or around lakes, ponds, is that there you see significant autonomous units, right? And or remote controlled units. That you can use on slopes or challenging areas. In the old days, you'd see somebody trying to push something around or drive on a slope. And that we very much like to see is that it's an improved safety model. And it's less risk for the operator. These big autonomous units.
Absolutely.
And they can be lower. You've seen them. Some of them are very low, so they're not gravity challenged.
It's gonna be fascinating to see which way it goes.
It is.
So. This show is amazing. We're always sort of pushing it to our readers and dealers in the UK. If you could give me a 45-second elevator pitch, Kris, what would it be?
You got to come over here. It's an experience. It's fun. Louisville's not far from the UK. But we share a lot of history, right? There's a lot of horse racing here. It's big in the UK. You know, you guys are famous for distilled spirits, as are we.
Yeah.
So that part of it is a shared experience. And again, by our standards, we're old. There's some interesting architecture here. But importantly, from a B2B perspective, remember, we're 41 years young. The show's never been bigger. It's never been better attended. So there's a business reason to be here, whether it's education or training. And we have partners, we have partners in irrigation, partners in lighting, partners in trenching, partners with dealers who put on the kind of training education that's relevant. That changes every single year.
Yeah.
But you're not going to see this kind of equipment in a space like this and be able to drive it at the same time anywhere else in the world.
No, I agree with you. Great. Nice elevator pitch, sir.
Thank you.
Kris, genuinely, congratulations.
Thank you.
This has been, once again, an amazing show. You're evolving it, you're growing it, and it's powering in the right direction.
Just remember, it's a big team, right? I get to talk a lot, but we have a lot of folks that work on the show. It's a monster. It's a year-round enterprise. Again, we have an office here, a staff here, and we want ideas from folks like you, that are firsthand with dealers, firsthand with exhibitors. What do they want to hear and see and feel while they're here? And so I'm glad you're here, and we look forward to getting your feedback.
See you next year.
Thank you, man. Pleasure. Brilliant.